So today we have with us Barbara Grace from Barbara Grace Weddings. Hello, Barbara. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you again for accepting my request to interview you this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So let's jump into our first question, which is tell us a little bit about yourself and why you chose to be a wedding planner.
So as you mentioned, my name is Barbara Grace. I actually started out my first career as a legal assistant, which I did for 10 years. So very corporate, was part of the Bay Street hustle in downtown Toronto. And I knew that I had a very creative side to me that I wasn't really tapping into. So I knew I kind of wanted to discover and kind of get into that side of things, and kind of unleash that, I guess. So there were definitely a lot of things that I learned as a legal assistant, which definitely came into play, and still come into play as a wedding planner. A lot of organization and very detail oriented. So a lot of skills that I learned in that career that I've carried over and have been able to use. But now I also get to use the creative side of myself as well, which is a lot of fun. And I think I've always had that kind of desire to be an entrepreneur in me. So that's obviously also something now that I get to utilize, which is really, really great. So
Awesome, awesome. And when you first started, what were some of the greatest challenges that you encountered?
oh, there were so many. Not only with regards to just kind of finding my way and learning all of the processes that are involved in wedding planning and in running a successful event. That was definitely part of it. You kind of learn as you go along and you make mistakes as you go along and learn from all of those. But also just running a business. There's two very different sides to doing all of this. So there's the wedding planning aspect, which I love and enjoy, but then there's also the side of running a business, and all that comes with that. So all of the you're kind of a jack of all trades when you start out. Until you build and get to the point where you can start outsourcing some things. You're doing your own marketing, you're doing your own advertising, you're doing all of your own accounting and your social media and all of that yourself. So it's really a lot. You become very versatile and you teach yourself to do a lot of things on your own, in addition to actually doing all of the things that go along with the actual wedding planning aspect of it. So
Mm.
a lot when you first start out. So it's definitely challenging in that regard, but it's a lot of fun because you really do, you learn a lot about yourself and you learn what you're capable of.
Gotcha. Now, a lot of wedding planners, when they first start out, it's really a big challenge for them to earn, I guess, get the experience that they need to plan high-end professional weddings.
Yeah.
So, when you first started out, did you started out, planning your friends' weddings and, relatives and family members' weddings? How do you earn your first kind of experience or step into the wedding industry?
I think I took a very non-traditional route into wedding planning. I think a lot of people, at least from the discussions that I've had with other planners, a lot start out working for other people or working in venues, and that's kind of the route they take. They kind of get their feet wet a little bit, and then work their way in. I was the complete opposite. I jumped in headfirst and decided I was going to start my own business. And that was kind of it. I really didn't have a lot of experience in the wedding industry. So definitely a different way of doing it. I kind of jumped in, I started doing wedding shows. That was kind of one of my big intros into the whole industry. So I started doing wedding shows and started getting clients from that. Word of mouth, some friends that were getting married knew that this was, what I was starting to do. So I gained some clients that way as well. It was definitely a slow start, but once the ball got rolling, then it just kind of snowballed and grew pretty quickly. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
Wow. It takes a lot of courage and confidence to just jump out there and present yourself as a business and a wedding planner, right?
It does. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm very fortunate. I definitely found something that I love, and it's worked very well for me. So I feel like I really chose, um, the right path for myself in doing this.
Gotcha. Okay. So why do your clients hire you over other wedding planners out there? Because it's a very saturated market.
It is. I think it really comes down to personality. There's a lot of wedding planners out there, and really, when it comes right down to it, we're all doing things quite similarly in the sense of, we all create our itineraries and we're dealing with our vendors, and, we're all hopefully treating our clients very well and offer a really high level of service. So that base is kind of there across the board with all wedding planners. I think it really comes down to style and personality. Everyone's very different. So I tell all of my clients when I sit down with them in a consultation process that when they're sitting down with vendors and potential vendors to hire their team of people, and it is a team because we all do work very closely together, you can't just look at budget and you can't just look at style. You really have to get along with the people that you're hiring. So I encourage all of my clients to really get to know the people and make sure that you're comfortable with them and you trust them. Wedding planners specifically, it's a very long process. I work with my clients anywhere from 2 years to 6 months, sometimes more, sometimes less. So it's a really long process, and I'm with them a lot. So they really have to put a lot of trust in me and in what I'm doing, and trust in the process. So they have to get along with me. So I think it really comes down to whether or not our personalities actually gel with each other or not. And I think that's a vibe that you pick up right away, and it's either they're there or it's not.
Gotcha. Awesome. And can you describe a time when you went above and beyond to wow your client?
I feel like I do that every wedding. We always, I think I always go above and beyond, just in the sense that whether something is actually outlined in my contract or not, at the end of the day, I want really happy clients. I want a really happy wedding party and really happy guests. So whatever needs to be done gets done, and if that means that I have to go out of my way, I will go out of my way for them. There's no question. There's never a question of, well, I'm not really hired to do that, so yeah, sorry, I can't do that for you. With me, it doesn't work that way. I just want really happy clients at the end of the day, so I will do what has to be done in order to make that happen.
Gotcha. Now, do you have a story on the top of your head that can illustrate your point?
I had a wedding this past summer. It was a Canada Day wedding, outdoor. Ceremony was to be outdoors, and then reception inside the tent. And the bride really was quite adamant about getting married outside. She had a backup plan, but wasn't too keen on actually using it. And I don't know, for those that recall, the weather on Canada Day, at least out in these parts, there were torrential downpours. It rained, like rain side of rain. So the weather was not cooperative. This summer has been a bit of a tough one, so for weather. But I watched very closely. We were watching the radar, and I really kept an eye on things. And it looked like the rain was going to pass about an hour after what her scheduled ceremony when it was supposed to take place. So I touched base with her and touched base with the photographer and all of the venue staff and said, look, she really wants to get married outside. I'd really like to make this happen for her. So if we can bump things a little bit later, then we would like to do that. So again, this is where the team comes in. Photographer was like, yeah, no problem. He was still going to have enough time to get the shots that he needed. The venue staff was really great, because what happened was we had to reset all of the ceremony chairs. We were originally set up on the lawn, which was now a swamp because of all of the rain. So we had to essentially reset the whole ceremony space, dry off the chairs, get everything kind of rejigged and ready to go, so that she could get married outside. So it was just one of those things. That was what she wanted, and I wanted to make it happen for her. So we made it happen. And I do say we, because it was a lot of people involved in that process to actually bring that together and make it work. So
it is the whole team. It definitely is a team work kind of activity.
Absolutely. Yeah, every single time it is. Every wedding is a team effort.
Awesome. So when do you as a wedding planner exercise original thinking and creativity, since you mentioned it earlier?
I like to think that I get couples that really do want to kind of think outside the box a little bit, or sometimes a lot. So I think every wedding, to me, weddings, whether they're traditional or not, it's really about the couple. And it should be a reflection of the couple. So I take the time to really get to know them and understand, what they want out of their wedding and what kind of vibe they're going for and what they want for both themselves and for their guests. And we try to create a really unique experience. So I feel like I use creativity with every single wedding. It's really about making it about the couple, not just a cookie cutter. Okay, this is a wedding, so you have to do A, B, and C. It's about getting to know the couple and kind of incorporate a little bit of themselves into every single wedding so that all of the guests have a really great experience and really leave the wedding with a feeling of, wow, that was such a great reflection of the two of them joining together in marriage.
So sometimes you gotta really take in the vision of your couple and provide some really creative, out of the box thinking solutions,
Absolutely.
right? Now, do you have a source where you continually get inspired and get ideas from?
I think I take a lot of my inspiration from a lot of the vendors that I've had the opportunity to work with. I usually tend to look more locally than anything else. So, looking to all of my, florist friends and vendors that I get to work with and decorators. I love looking to them and seeing their actual real weddings that they do. To gain inspiration, because it really is very inspiring, both from a creative standpoint and also just to see what they're doing in their own businesses and how they're running their businesses. It's really great to kind of gain ideas, and kind of incorporate some of those things into my business as well. So I really like to look to them because they're the ones that I work with on a regular basis, and that I can reach out to and network with. And we sometimes will sit down and have chats, and just kind of talk about wedding things and what's out there and what's going on and what's new and exciting in the industry. So I think that's where I tend to lean towards.
Got it. And I do see you at a lot of these open houses and industry events. Is that also a source of inspiration?
Absolutely. I love going to those. It's great. It's just really nice to touch base with all of the amazing creative people that are in this industry. There's no shortage of incredible vendors. So it's great just to get to know them and share ideas, and network with them. I just find it's really, really helpful. And I always want to keep things new and fresh in my business. You never want to get to a point where you're stale and doing the same things over and over. So I find that networking is really great for that.
Gotcha. Now, here's a tougher question for you. When do you decide to fire a client?
Fortunately, I've never had to do that. um, for me, it's really, I put a lot into my consultation process. So I really try to kind of pre-qualify people before I even get to the point of signing contracts with them, because I really want to make sure that I'm getting the right couples for me. It's a two-way street. So they have to love me and they have to put a lot of trust in me. And I also really have to love them and have a desire to work with them. So if I'm excited about the things they're telling me about the things that they want to do for their wedding during that consultation process, then it's a no-brainer. If they're telling me things that don't really vibe with, how I do things and my processes, or if I feel that they're not really understanding what my role is as a wedding planner, then I would just kind of say that, I don't think this is the right fit, for me. So I try not to get too far into that process so that I don't get to a stage where I have to fire them. But to answer that question, I think if I did get to that stage, it would be the same conversation. It would just be a matter of, you know what, I don't think this is the right fit. And I never want to get into a situation where I'm going to end up with clients that are unhappy at the end of it, because really no one wants that. I want clients that are thrilled at the end of the process and are thankful that they were able to have a wedding planner that brought their vision to life and that were helpful to them.
That's amazing. Thank you. Um, And what are some of your best marketing tips, especially for wedding planners or wedding professionals who are just starting out in the industry?
Whew, that's a tough one. Everyone runs their business very differently. So I find that a lot of different things work for different people, depending on the structure of their business. But I think my biggest piece of advice is really put yourself out there and network and get to know as many people as you possibly can and be supportive of all of the other people that are in this industry. I think that's a really, really big one. I'm friends with a lot of planners in this industry. We're all kind of in this together. There's more than enough work for all of us. So just get out there and get along with people. I think that's a really, really big thing. We really need to be supportive of each other. We're all trying to run our own businesses and be successful at what we're doing. And the better that all of us do our job, the better it is for all of us.
Mm.
So we need to raise each other up and not try to tear each other down. So that I think is a, probably my best piece of advice, not necessarily directly related to the actual planning aspect, but just running a business in general. Just be really supportive of each other and build a really good network, because when you need help, then you have people to reach out to. And when you need advice, you've got people there that you can go to and get advice from. I think it's really, really important when running a business. Being an entrepreneur can be lonely at times. So you really need to build a good network of people.
That's why you're part of the mastermind group. Am I correct?
Exactly. And I've built really great relationships in that mastermind group. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Now, having great relationships with vendors and other wedding planners is great. Now, has that helped you in any way in generating leads and sales?
Absolutely. I've actually received referrals from other planners, and I receive a ton of referrals from other vendors in the industry that I work with. Wedding industry is highly referral based. So not only from clients and previous clients, which I also get referrals from as well, but from vendors in the industry, I'm constantly getting referrals. So it plays a huge role in generating new business.
Now, would the vendor referrals be more than your client referrals?
I think I'm getting to the point now that it's probably about an even split. Um,
Mm.
as business has grown, and now that I've been doing this for almost 6 years, actually 6 years, I think it's probably about an even split now. So, and
And before it was vendors, right? Heavier on the vendor side.
yes, absolutely. Before it was vendors, more vendors that were giving me referrals because I would work with them and they would see, what I do. They obviously, were impressed with how I do things and how I treat my clients as well as how I treat them. And then the referrals would start to come in. So,
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Um, so I hear a lot about wedding planners. They say that they are also their client's therapists. What do you think about that? Like, do you find yourself in that situation sometimes?
um, yeah, a little bit. I think we're definitely there again because we work with our clients so closely and for so long. We definitely are there to give advice. And sometimes the advice is, on a color scheme or flowers or dresses. But sometimes the advice is also about, this bridesmaid is not, being part of the wedding, or my future mother-in-law is driving me crazy and has a lot of opinions. And so yeah, that definitely comes into play, and we just try to offer sound advice. And at the end of the day, it's really just to keep everyone calm and relaxed. We try to be the voice of reason for our clients. So
Awesome, awesome. Now, is that, some clients, they just keep coming with more and more questions and help and advice that's not really related to the wedding anymore. Do you entertain that, or do you somehow divert it or change the topic back into, wedding planning and what you provide as a service?
well, I always want to answer their questions. If they're coming to me with a concern, then I do want to address it. I certainly don't want to brush it off, because if they're bringing it up, then it's obviously something that is concerning them and causing them some sort of stress. So I would do my best to try and at least address it. But also, I mean, if it's something that I think is, not necessarily relevant or something that they shouldn't maybe be focusing on, then I would be honest with that and tell them, you know what, this, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't something that you should be too worried about. Because I don't want them stressing at every turn when it comes to the wedding.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So how do you choose the right vendors to work with? Because, in wedding planner, especially as a wedding planner, you're only as good as your team, right? And, if you get the right vendors, then you're going to get the right, the ideal wedding that you plan for.
Yes. It's really, again, it's about getting to know my clients. So I really, again, in that consultation process and in, subsequent meetings, I really get to know them as a couple and understand their personalities and what they're looking for. And I base my recommendations on that because, again, going back when I was saying that it's really about personality. So you want to make sure that you're matching personalities and people that are going to get along well together. One of the examples that I use that I find is really, really crucial is the photographer. If you're not comfortable with your photographer, they spend an entire day with you. And they're photographing you. So if you're not comfortable with them, that's going to reflect back in your photos. You're going to look tense. You're not going to look relaxed. You're not going to have natural smiles on your face. So it's really, really important to be comfortable with the people that you're working with. So I really try to match personalities. Obviously, things like the style of the couple come into play. Their budget, I need to make sure I'm staying within, the allotted budget that they want to spend on any particular vendor. So those are also factors that come into play as well when deciding. But to me, it really comes down to matching personalities and making sure that I'm matching them with someone that they're really going to truly get along with. And of course, finding vendors that are the absolute best at what they do. The vendors that I recommend to me are a reflection of my business. So when I throw out a recommendation, I need to make sure that those vendors are offering the same level of service that I offer. So that's really important as well.
See, that's very true. I mean, it's a reflection of your brand as well, right? And I know that you see your brand as very, very important because I can see the consistency of your logo to your website to how you are with people and how you, create these relationships with vendors and, potential clients. Now, on the topic of branding, how important is branding for a wedding planner?
Oh, I think it's huge. Again, so typically, depending on where your referrals are coming from, if someone goes to your website, goes to your Instagram, goes to your Facebook, any of your social media outlets, that is the first thing that they see. So the images that you're putting out there and your branding needs to be a reflection of you and of your business, because then if you do get to the point where you schedule a consultation with them, you want to make sure that that process is seamless. And so when they come to sit down with you, it's just a continuation of what they've already seen, and that they already have a good understanding of what they're kind of getting into. If there's a disconnect between your branding and between how you are as a person and what kind of weddings you're doing, you're not going to book people. You're not going to get those clients in because they're going to sit down and meet with you and say, oh, this is not what we expected. So you want to make sure you're meeting those expectations from your branding.
Definitely, I totally agree with that. Especially when potential clients, they go through a few touch points like your social media, like your website, like maybe even meeting you at an event. It all has to be consistent, and it really kind of connects all of those different touch points together, and it's related, right? Because if I go onto your website and then I meet you some other time, if your website's not consistent to your brand or look and feel of it, then I might not even know that I checked out your website. But if I see your logo on your business card and I recognize it, and on your site is using the same colors and themes, and the level of work is on par, then when I meet you, then everything is together and consistent. It's memorable.
Exactly. And couples nowadays are doing their research and they are checking out everyone's social media and websites. So they're doing that work beforehand before they even meet you. You have no idea how many times they've come across your name before they actually contact you for that consultation.
Now, I know that a lot of brides today are millennials. have you changed your business in any way to target millennials or any of your processes when you're planning the wedding for them?
I think it's really just a matter. I think social media has definitely changed, not too much since I started my business. I like to think I was always quite involved in social media. It certainly changes from year to year, and you need to make adjustments. But I think overall, it's really right now. It's really about social media. Also, response time I think is a big one. People want immediate response now. So it's really about, when you receive that inquiry, you need to answer them back. I mean, I try to do it within, a few hours at minimum, but I mean, even it used to be, 24 hours, we'll get back to you. But now people want a much more immediate response. So everything is, we want it now. So I think it's just trying to, keep on top of that is really important. And yeah, just staying on top of social media. People, like I said, people are checking you out well before they even get to a point of sending you an email or making a phone call to get in touch with you. They see you a lot of different places before they even get to that point. So I think just staying on, current, posting often and kind of putting your work out there so people get a sense of your branding and who you are, I think is really important nowadays.
Yeah, I find personally that, people do their own research and then they qualify you first before they even contact you.
Yeah.
So, now when people contact you through your contact form or they give you a call, they already pre-qualified themselves and they're coming in much later in the sales funnel process than what it was traditionally.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. So, this is a more of a personal question, but, I'm sure everybody is curious. When did you decide to go pro with your business? Like, when do you decide that this business is going to be my bread and butter?
Um, so I started out when I first started my business, as I mentioned, it was kind of like I just jumped into it. I did start out part-time because I, really didn't know if it was something that I was going to enjoy. Um, and thankfully it's something that I absolutely love. It's definitely my passion now. But when I started, I did start at part-time. I was working a few different jobs at one point. So I had a full-time job, I had another part-time job, and I was doing wedding planning. And like I said, it started out kind of slowly. So it was a matter of, a kind of a combination of things. Firstly, learning if this was something that I was really passionate about and that I really enjoyed. I would never want to run my own business if I didn't actually enjoy what I was doing. So that first and foremost was the biggest thing for me. And then in finding out that, yes, I actually do really like this. Secondly was, I think I'm quite good at it. And saw that I was getting great feedback from clients and from other vendors. So that was also kind of, helpful in kind of giving me that push to continue on with it and pursue it a little bit further. And I was probably about three and a half years in when I decided to make the switch and do it full time. I was kind of to that tipping point where I now had enough clients and was getting enough clients in that I realized that, yes, I could do this full time. And it was one of those, you come to those crossroads and it's either, okay, I'm either going to keep this as a side business or I'm going to pursue it. But if I'm going to pursue it, again, you have to go all in with it. You can't be wishy-washy on it. So, when you're running a business full time, there's a financial investment that goes along with that. There's a time investment that goes along with it. A lot of sacrifices are made when you're running your own business. So it really is a huge commitment. And it's something that you have to kind of mentally prepare yourself for and be ready to do. So I think I just got to that point where I was like, yes, you know what, this is what I want to do. I really enjoy it. I absolutely love it. Everything else was becoming secondary. So I just decided to make that decision and go all in.
So this might be the last question. And, if you can do all of this all over again, what would you have done differently? Like, do you have any advice for people who are starting out in this industry?
Um, I think for me, I like to think that everything is a learning process. So I don't think I would have done anything differently, because for me, everything that I did and the way that I did it is what brought me to this point. So not everything went smoothly all the time, and there's always bumps in the road, and you learn as you go along. But I learned. So you learn from your mistakes, and you learn from all of those bumps in the road. So I think that's what brought me to the point that I'm at. So I wouldn't say that I would have done anything differently or changed everything, because I think everything is a process. And I think that process looks different for everyone. So again, like I said, I took a very non-traditional route into starting my own business. I don't think that's necessarily for everyone. I think some people would probably maybe be better off, starting in the industry, working under someone and learning that way. But it's all about your own individuality and personality and what works for you. I don't think the plan or the process is the same for everyone. I think it's different for everyone, and you just have to figure out what works for you. But I think at the end of the day, just be confident in your decisions. And when you decide you're going to do something, you have to go all in and just do it and be committed to it. I think that's the main thing. Just work really hard. It's not an industry, and just running your own business in general. It's not something that you can do if you're not completely committed to it. You are going to have to make sacrifices. You are going to have to work really, really hard. There's sleepless nights. I've been doing this for 6 years, and there's still sleepless nights. Like, it's just, the work doesn't end. It never ends. We're always changing and growing the business and learning new things. That never stops. So you really do have to have a really strong commitment to doing it. So
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Barbara. I mean, we've got a lot of value on this call together, and I'm sure that this value will help many people in the future either make the decision to go with you, to have you as their wedding planner, or to start their own company as in the wedding industry. So thank you so much, Barbara.
thank you again for having me, Alex. It was a pleasure.
No problem.